Monday evening, November 4th, and you're back with us for the FloTrack College Cross Country Rankings Show presented by HOKA. I'm Ryan Fenton alongside my co-host Ashley Tishins. Ashley, welcome back to another beautiful Monday.
Thank you. Same to you. I know you were remote last week, so good to have you back here in studio.
Yeah, good to be here. And we're going to talk about a ton of cross-country action, but that wasn't the only action. There was obviously a big marathon out there. But maybe the biggest news of the weekend was the Pittsburgh 10-miler, where our guest analyst, Matt Baxter, who unfortunately is not with us today, was out there and won that race, 47 minutes and 47 seconds, a win over Reed Buchanan by almost a minute and a half. Ashley, pretty amazing stuff.
Impressive. I know they got some hills out there in Pittsburgh too, so that's impressive, I think.
Yeah, I think we owe him a round of applause. Matt,
he deserves
congrats.
a day off.
Congrats. Yeah, you deserve the day off, recover. We'll be looking forward to having you back on the show on the next one. With that said, again, a ton of action this weekend. Actually, I was out in New York City, actually not at cross country. I was out there for the marathon, out there with our boy Johnny Pace. But I know you were out on the cross country course at SEC's, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, that's right. I was out in College Station, Texas, where we saw some really fast performances go down on that course out there. And so really, just interesting to see all that unfold. But we also had some teams out at Big 12s as well, which ended up being very entertaining. One of the most entertaining championships of the conference weekend.
Yeah, we're going to dig into it. I mean, there was obviously some big name teams out there at the Big 12 this year. They're really headlining a lot of the talk around cross country. And the big headline on the men's side was the upset of the #1 ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys by the BYU Cougars, who are ranked number 3 going into this weekend. So that, I think, is a good segue, Ashley, to today's guest, who we are very excited to have on the show, and that is the coach of that winning team, Mr. Ed Eyestone, and we will welcome him on now. Ed, great to have you.
Hey, guys.
Happy Monday, and congrats on your first Big 12 title.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is our second year in the Big 12, and last year Oklahoma State just handed it to us, and as they should have. They had a very, very good team that went on to win the national meet, probably one of the best NCAA teams for a long, long time last year. And with the way they reloaded, I think they're maybe on paper even better. But I was proud of the way my guys went out. There's only 2 races that we care about, really. It's the Big 12 championship and it's the NCAA championship. I wasn't sure that we were going to be in a position to maybe take that title this year. Was just hoping to keep it close, and that's why we run these sporting events. That's why we play the games and why we run races. Is it doesn't always sort out as you would think so on paper, and so I was just really pleased with the way my guys rose up and claimed the first. I think it's the first Big 12 championship title in any men's sport at BYU. So I think I made my AD happy. I may have secured my job for another year. So it was nice. And, I've got a lot of seniors this year. So if we were going to do it, this is probably the year to do it.
I gotta suspect that the job is pretty secure at this point, but I do want to look at one of the things that you said. Just the reload of OSU. I mean, we've talked about it kind of week in and week out about how on paper how deep they look, and so you as a coach, I'm curious how you approach that with the team, right? Because you obviously see that, you may know it, you and the coaching staff may talk about it, but what are you then saying to the team? And are you talking about it all throughout the season, before the championships, or like championship week? What's actually being said to get those guys ready?
Yeah, I think more than anything, we just try to preach process over product. Do your thing, get out well, settle in, run in the position you're supposed to. In our case, that means probably Casey Klinger doing battle up front. With the other, top dogs in the Big 12, trying to break up some people, some of the Oklahoma State great runners, and then the rest of the guys were just trying to pack it in. We had some success a couple of weeks ago at Dillinger when we had a 5-second differential between 1 and 5, and Casey was that much more fit 2 weeks later, so we were kind of letting him go run up front, and then let's pack it in with the other guys. And again, on paper, looking at who, Oklahoma State put on the line. We were just trying to get our 2, 3, 4, 5 up as far as we could go, and hopefully in that if we could get ahead of the third or fourth guy and have 5 guys in before their fourth or even fifth, we might have a chance to at least keep it close. And kind of played out that way, through the first split that we got as we were tracking the thing. I think we were down 17 points. And then at the 5K mark, we're down 13 points. And that's close, but, that's still a pretty solid lead when you've only got, 3 or 4 teams that are really up there in position. We also were respecting Iowa State, because if we had an off day and they were they've got plenty of talent there too. So we weren't taking anybody for granted, particularly Iowa State, or anybody wearing yellow, Iowa State, or anybody wearing orange, Oklahoma State. We were very mindful of that. Like I say, through 5K, we were still down, I think, 13 points. Through 6K, we dropped a few. We were down 17 points. But then at 7K, a bit of light opens up. We're now only down by 7 points. And then my guys are moving really well. And a couple of their top guys, I think, struggled a little bit. So I think it was a combination of really good team tactics on our part and a couple of off days on their part. And we're probably going to have to see that happen again in Wisconsin. But at least now my guys, have the confidence, having executed. You try to take advantages of your opponent's off days. And I think they, a couple of their guys, maybe, I think we run that race maybe 10 times. I'd like to think that we would have that same outcome 50% of the time, but I'm also a realist and can see what happened over the last couple of K with a couple of their guys. So we're going to have to be loaded for bear once again when we go to Madison, and hopefully we can pull it off again.
I want to ask you about one thing that you spoke with our team afterwards, after y'all's win. And I think one thing that really stood out to me was you said, hey, I've had talented teams, I've had tough teams, but this is a talented and a tough team. So I'm kind of curious, what have you seen from them this year? Not just at Big 12s, but like in practice and all the other meets that you guys have competed at, to kind of give you that notion that, hey, not only are these guys really good, but they can really battle it out as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a culture that comes through, and just what I've seen. And some of these same guys a year ago maybe didn't have that same level of maturity or same ability to just to push through. And I think that's where their toughness has come. We've gone through some good things together as a team. And then when you see teammates do very well at the Olympic trials, and you go, or the Olympic Games, and you go, well, I've been training shoulder to shoulder with these guys. Why not me? Then that instills a level of confidence that I think makes you inherently a little bit more tough. And so we just want to kind of retool and continue the build. Another thing we've been preaching all year long is just the importance of a good, solid build. And I think that came as a result of the guys who competed over in Paris, particularly Connor and Clayton, that it was a 16-week build getting ready for Paris. And we kind of likened that to the cross-country season and a multi-week, multi-month build, not getting ahead of ourselves, not being cocky, stay hungry and humble, and then be tough. And I think we really kind of put it all together. And I think we may have surprised Oklahoma State a little bit. With them having stayed at home, I don't know that they'd seen that level of depth and competition before. And sometimes it takes a rust buster and a surprise for you to go, okay, we're going to not take anything for granted now. So we've woken a sleeping giant, and we're going to have to face a very caffeinated and wide awake giant in Madison at nationals, and we'll have to see if we can pull a little magic again. But for the time being, I told the guys, hey, you never apologize for winning a conference championship, especially when it's the first one. And it might be, we hope to be in a position to battle again. But we know that this year we were in a good position. And so to be able to pull it off, we were very excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, right? You need to kind of cherish those moments because you don't know when they come back around. And I think about just
Exactly.
how strong BYU as a program is historically. But you look through the ranks, and you guys have won once. I had to remind myself, 2019 I think was the first title. I know there were a couple runner-up finishes, over I think it was like in the 90s and in the year before you won. So what's the, like, how do you describe to your team, or do you describe to the team just how significant these moments are? And like when you think about Madison a few weeks to go, right? You got to get through regionals, I understand, but how do you make it so it's not such a big thing, too big for some of these
Yeah.
young guys that may
Well,
may get
my
lost in
guys
the
are
light?
yeah, my guys are very aware and they follow the sport enough, and they know that when you have guys on the opposing teams that are third at nationals in the 10,000 and fourth in the 5,000 have run, really they'll probably run sub 13 this year. That you really have to bring your A game, and then you have to make it into a team thing, and so I think it's a matter of I'm not going to have a hard time keeping these guys humble because they realized they had a really good day. I know, and we probably caught Oklahoma State a little bit. Uh, they didn't execute probably up to their full standing. So like I say, I think they're going to be more wary at the national meet. I think they'll run a better race, and so we're going to have to run a better race too. And we had a couple of guys that have been sick and have missed a little training as well. So I think we can bring it up a notch as well. It'll be interesting also to get in a race where there's, instead of just 100 guys, there's going to be 230 guys or whatever. And so some of those people will add some points here and there. So we just need to be not be cocky, not be, enjoy the fact that we did win the Big 12. That this is ours. It's something that can't be taken away from us, but also recognize that the most important race is the Saturday before Thanksgiving. And I think my guys are aware of that. We're certainly going to go into it as, even though we we beat Goliath, so to speak. We know that Goliath is still very alive and is going to be coming and going to be very, very strong. And Iowa State, for that matter. I think we could get quite possibly the top three teams maybe coming from our conference at the national meet. So we just need to be humble and hungry and continue to do the things that we've done, and then let the chips fall where they are, and then not be obsessive about orange or yellow. Just focus on the guy wearing the royal blue and the job that he's going to do himself. And that if everyone is accountable for their own work at the end of the day, win, place, or show, we're going to feel pretty good about our day at the national meet.
Now, the men's team obviously wasn't the only team to win at the Big 12 championships. The women's team, led by Coach Jill G. Taylor, won as well. I think y'all even had like the same points scored, which is it's kind of funny there. I'm just curious, obviously you guys both win championships, both teams. What are the vibes like between the teams? When you're obviously both programs are among the best in the nation, among the women's and the men's. So just kind of what's that vibe like?
Well, this year the women got to go first, so they certainly we were taking notes during their race and noticing how fast everybody ran, and that hill was that course was a pretty challenging course as well. And when the women win, I think it gives us confidence, and it certainly makes us want to also win, because we don't want to be on the second page of the sports section, right? We want to be up there representing. There's not a real rivalry, but we each take pride in our own program, and certainly Coach Taylor does an amazing job with the women, and I think they're poised to be in a very good position at the national meet. But I think we each separately in our own cultures understand what has to be done, and Coach Taylor does an excellent job preparing her people to be effective on race day, and I try to do the same thing. And then at the end of the day, if we both win, we're going to both be going out to dinner, and hopefully our AD will be picking up the tab, and we'll be doing a great job. And if we come up short than that, as long as we know that we've done the very best, run to the best of our ability, and executed a good race plan, then, like I say, win, place, or show, we're going to be pretty happy about things.
Ed, I want to ask you one more question before on the team specifically before we let you get back to practice. I think you got coming up here. But one of the big stories coming out of the spring was James Corrigan, his breakthrough after the NCAAs at the trials, and getting to see that opportunity for him to chase the standard and then make his way to Paris. What's his road been like since coming back from the games? It seemed like he came back, and I think he raced maybe he was number 4 or number 5. He's now been a solid number 2 for you guys. I know,
Yeah.
he was 32nd last year, so no slouch on the cross course. But what's his progression been like, and anything different from his experience at the games that you've noticed?
Well, he had such a phenomenal end to his track season. Making it to NCAAs and the huge improvements he had done in terms of personal bests, and winning his prelim heat, I think, at NCs, and then coming back, unfortunately, didn't have his best race there, and actually ran solid, but finished out of the first team All-American. But at that point in time, I was able to put he and Kenny into some workouts together, and actually he beat Kenny in one of the workouts about a week out from the trials, and I was going, oh, I hope that didn't shatter Kenny's confidence, but obviously it didn't. But by the time he got to Paris, I think he was one tired puppy from all the, running so well at the Olympic trials, getting third, and then having to turn around in 6 days and doing that last chance, running the American collegiate record, 8:13 at Philly under not perfect conditions, but pretty darn good conditions. But I think by the time we got to the games, he's adrenaline, plus the fact that he got married a week after that. He'd gone through a very big summer. And so when he got eliminated, unfortunately, on the prelims at Paris, well, I just said, okay, let's not even worry about running here for a week or two. Enjoy the rest of the week in Paris, and then let's take another easy week when you get back. And then we really didn't involve him into any harder workouts until about 3-4 weeks later, as we got back into September. And since that time, though, he's been gradually coming around. And I think as well as he ran last year at nationals, I think he's going to be in position to see what he can do. Casey's certainly someone who's gunning for a top 10 or better. Hopefully top 5 at NCs. And I don't think James necessarily has to be too far behind him. Now, he fulfilled a really good role at the conference meet because I probably could have said, hey, try to see how long you can run with Casey. But instead, I just said, okay, let's have our 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kind of run together for as long as they can. And so I think he may have sacrificed a few spots in kind of being back. And it was also good for him, because I don't know that he's really ready to put himself out there with Masao or, some of the other stud Kenyans that are out there. So running a kind of a tactical race with his teammates, there's some real confidence that comes when you have 3 or 4 guys wearing the same uniform, up in a very competitive conference meet. And I think that really helped him. Now, whether we stick to that strategy at the national meet or we let him go off a little earlier, or we'll see. But I think when we get him running at 100% and we get a few guys healthy, or at least post-injury a couple more weeks, and maybe post-cold a couple more weeks, then even though Oklahoma State, I'm sure, will run a better race at the national meet, hopefully we can keep it close. And then Iowa State as well is going to be right there. I mean, Iowa State could beat us both, if they have a really good day. So, but again, it's just a matter of preparing the best you can and then running your own race, and then win the race at the end. Win the race that you're in, whether you're battling for top 3 or battling for top 20. Win that race that you find yourself in. You're going to help out your team. And if you have a good, deep team, then you have a chance to be on the podium.
And then lastly, before we let you go here, I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention that, you just got back from New York City Marathon where you're coaching Connor Mans, Clayton Young. They both finished in the top 10 there. So busy weekend for you, that's for sure. Just reflecting on New York City real quickly, how did you feel about Connor and Clayton and what they were able to do out there in New York City?
Well, I think if you just look at the last 13, 14 months that they've gone through, I'd give them A pluses really. And a lot of people they're not critical. They're just going, are those guys attached to the hip, or are they ever going to run a different race? Yes, they will run separate races at some point in time. But starting back in Chicago of last year, they really needed to go to a fast course, which they did. They punched that A ticket. They punched 2 spots to and opened 2 windows to Paris. So that was good. And once they did that, obviously, then they're going to go to the same race, the Olympic trials, where they ran again very well there. And then to come back after and then finish, 8, 9 in Paris, and then have a quick turnaround for this last one and get 6th and 7th and really be, I think Connor had the fastest closing mile. And I think Clayton had the 2nd or 3rd fastest closing mile. So good marks all along, and just happy for their consistency. I've always said that the mark of a great athlete isn't necessarily the one-off wonder, but consistency. And at least over the last 14 months, they've shown signs of greatness through their consistency. So kudos to that. So proud of the way that they went to New York, proud of the way they battled. I thought they both had excellent races. I thought Connor had just had such an amazing fall, ran that really super fast time in the 10-miler, and Clayton was getting dropped a little bit more so in workouts than he had before. But the fact that he rallied in the race and actually had, finished as close, 20-something seconds back from Connor, I think, he had an outstanding day as well. So great job for those two. And there's going to be great things ahead. We're going to find some fast races for them. I'm going to get Connor in a fast half marathon at some point this next year. And we'll have fun with that, but we won't, that's my side gig. What we're most concerned about right now is getting the Cougars through the end of the cross country season. And I hope the cross country college world out there is really excited right now, because we really have, NAU. I'm not even writing NAU off at this point in time, right? Because we know how good that they've been and how surprising they've had. And on the year that maybe they're maybe a little off, some people say, I'll believe it when I see it at the national meet. Then we have a team like Oklahoma State who has stepped up, and man, you just have, challenges. But I guess at the end of the day, we want to embrace those challenges, not be intimidated by those challenges, but embrace it and say, okay, we got them at Big 12. We know it's going to be tough at the national meet. Let's embrace this. Let's go for it. Let's try to beat them. I know Dave Smith's going to have his Stallions set to do the same thing and to make up. And so it's about rivalries, right? It's about fun. It's for the last few years, it's been NAU, BYU, and we were getting I don't know how good of rivals we were, because we only beat them one time out of however many times we were so allegedly rivals. And now, lo and behold, we have a new rivalry. We're in a new conference, and it makes it fun. I hope it makes it fun for the fans. Hope it makes fun for you guys.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. That's why we're here talking to you. So, but we appreciate your time. It's obviously been a busy, wild weekend, and now we're nearing the end of the season, championship season. So, a lot going on, a lot for BYU to be excited about between 2 conference championships, the marathon performances this weekend. So congrats to the team, your athletes, and you and your coaching staff, Ed. It's always great talking to you. So I think we have plenty to talk about, plenty to clip out for our guests to hear what you have to say to get this excitement rolling. Some bold potential predictions around top 3 teams in the Big 12 being the top 3 teams in the nation. I think we'll have some things coming out later.
Why not? Why are we going to see that? I mean, this is isn't this a reveal of some sort?
Yeah. There may be some foreshadowing here, which I like. So,
okay.
But
I'll stay tuned.
Yeah.
Then as best I can and follow that up. And I love predictions and anything that generates entertainment and talk, I think is a good thing. So whether we're placed where we should be or not, I think everyone will be excited about whatever comes out, and we'll just try to live up to whatever hype that exists as a result of it. But yeah, let's have some fun.
Love it. Well, best of luck to you guys in 2 weeks. We'll be seeing you in about 3 weeks or so. So hope everyone stays healthy and rolling out there. And again, thanks so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Take care.
All right, so Ed Eyestone with us. Ashley, a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to get excited about as we look ahead to the NCAA championships and obviously regionals beforehand. But any takeaways for you from Ed?
For me personally, I think what he talked about with, hey, he thinks that they kind of woke a sleeping giant per se. I think that's really interesting going into regionals and nationals as well, right? Like we haven't seen the Oklahoma State men compete against many ranked teams so far at all this season. They've competed a lot at home, and here now, you're at the Big 12 championships, competing against some of the top teams, and BYU was able to do better than them on the day, but at the end of the day, they're still Goliath. They're still the defending NCAA champions. So I think that's a great takeaway, I think, going forward. And I'm curious to see how the BYU men take that message now going forward.
Yeah. I mean, OSU is still deep. Obviously, they didn't run well maybe on the day for themselves. But a lot of things to get excited about. And we talked at the top of the show where Ashley and the team was at some of the conference meets around the country. And so we're going to get into that. And dig into what actually happened before the big reveal of this week's ranking. So, Ashley, with that, you were at the SEC Championships, so give us the rundown. What did you see out there in College Station?
I mean, goodness, I think to cap off SEC in a couple words, I would say fast and furious, right? Like I think that we saw some of the fastest performances of the season, and we saw some of the heavy hitters do really well on the men's and women's sides. For now going through just the winners and top performances, beginning first with the women's side. Impressive win for number 11 Alabama over number 26 Tennessee. They put 2 in the top 5. They went 1, 4, 15, 19, and 33. Still need to improve a little bit of a gap between 2 and 3, I think, to crack that top 10 potentially at NCAAs, but still a very solid performance for them, led by Doris Lemon-Gole, who set a new course record 18:20 for 6K to win the individual title. And then Tennessee, they're ranked number 26 going into the weekend, but they take down both number 17 Florida and number 20 Arkansas. So I think that was a big performance for them on the women's side. Now on the men's side, we saw Arkansas, who was coming off a win at pre-nats, come into SECs, and they get the job done. They beat, I think going into this, Alabama looked like their biggest challenger, and they were able to take them down. They went 1, 3, 5, 13, and 16. There was still a bit of a gap, I think, between 3 and 4 and 4 and 5 that they need to improve on. But where they definitely don't need to improve on is their low stick. Patrick Kiprop gets the individual title, 21:57 for 8K, which if we're talking sub 22 for an 8K, like that's just almost hard to fathom, I think. And so he does the job for them, and I think that was a really big takeaway when you're looking at SECs. Arkansas still looking good. Now, I think the question from here is, now as we're going into regionals and nationals, especially nationals, will they be able to take down any of the other top-ranked teams?
You mentioned how fast Kiprop ran on the men's side, and I got to say, Doris on the women's side, that 18:20, that course record she set, she broke it. Was it a record that was broken earlier this year?
Yes.
But just in 2023, that record was Parker Valby's at 18:58, so 38 seconds faster than what Valby ran last year. But moving on to the Big 12, the conference that we just spoke to Mr. Ed Eyestone about. Obviously, the big story there, the number 3 ranked BYU Cougars upset the number 1 ranked OSU Cowboys. Number 4 ranked Iowa State finishes in a close third. There was only about 21 points separating those top 3 teams. Iowa State 10 points behind OSU. BYU is led by Casey Klinger in third. They had 6 of their runners finish in front of Oklahoma State's number 4 runner. So just tells you how well that core group ran. Brian Masao of OSU takes his 2nd consecutive individual title for Oklahoma State, followed by Solomon Kipchoge from Texas Tech, the 59-minute half marathoner we've talked about quite a bit on this show. This marks the first loss at the Big 12 championships for Oklahoma State since 2019. And on the flip side of that, this is BYU's first Big 12 title after their second year in the conference. So, Coach Ed Eyestone mentioned the strength of Iowa State, and I would just double down on that. Obviously, very good BYU and Oklahoma State teams. Iowa State had probably the best depth when you look at the top 8 runners across all of them. They had the best depth through that 8, 56-second spread between 1 and 8. So they've got a number of pieces in their toolbox, and if they need someone to step up, they can rotate maybe a few people in there. So we'll look out for that. On the women's side, number 1 BYU, they beat number 5 ranked West Virginia by 19 points, and we really saw that BYU is not only good, but they are very deep. This is their second consecutive Big 12 title. 9 seconds between their top 5 runners, and only 28 seconds between their top 8 runners. So very deep. Deeper than what I just described for Iowa State by far. We have Kaylee McCabe from West Virginia winning her 3rd individual Big 12 title. She becomes the 3rd woman in history to do so, with Kaylee Logue from Iowa State and the great Sally Kipyego from Texas Tech, if you remember her. So that was the action out there at the Big 12 championships.
I mean, I think for me, that was one of the most entertaining conferences of the weekend. Obviously, we see some upsets. I think of the conferences, the most heavy hitters per se. So I think that was really cool that we had people on the ground. But it also wasn't the final meet that we had people on the ground.
John Davern, our boy, was out.
Exactly. We had John Davern out at the Big East Championships. We were also streaming it live. And, looking at those top teams there, again, we saw some heavy hitters really duke it out there. If you're beginning first with the men's side, number 16 Villanova, they grab a narrow 6-point win over Butler, 35 points to 41 points there. They avenge a 6-point loss that they actually had to Butler just last year at these championships, so big for them. They're also led by their low stick Liam Murphy, who won the individual title on the men's side. Now, if we're looking at the women's side, they had, honestly, it was even closer than the men's race, a 1-point win for number 3 Georgetown over number 8 Providence. I think if you look at how the results shaped out, Georgetown is easily the deepest team in this race. They had 8 in the top 17. And then if you're looking at the individual side, it was actually Chloe Thomas of Connecticut. I think she pulled off a little bit of an upset here, beating out some top ladies like Chloe Scrimgore, Kimberly May, to grab the individual title here. Last year's champ, Chloe Scrimgore, she finishes 3rd here. So some upsets here and some big heavy hitters here duking it out at the Big East Championships.
And that's not the only action, obviously, throughout the country. Of meets that we were not at, I also want to touch on the ACC Conference Championship. And, maybe that's because that's where I ran, but also because it was a great meet. On the men's side, number 8, Wake Forest, upsets number 5 ranked Stanford for the team title. And this is despite Wake Forest's number 1 runner, Rocky Hansen, finishing as their 6th runner back in 32nd place. So Wake Forest, big win, their 2nd win at the ACC in the last 3 years. Really looking to see what their ranking will show when we reveal, and also what that means for them come NCAAs, assuming Rocky is back on his game. Gary Martin gets the individual win for Virginia. He upsets the defending champ and number 3 ranked Parker Wolf, who finished 3rd at the meet, right behind his teammate, Parker's teammate, Ethan Strand, who was 2nd. Now, on the women's side, number 6 ranked Notre Dame, top-ranked team in the ACC, wins the title, but it was only by 6 points. Number 22, Stanford, ranked Stanford, has a huge run. They finished 2nd place with an identical score to number 13 ranked North Carolina. So they win based on the tiebreak. And then on the further back, number 12 ranked and defending ACC champs NC State, I should say defending ACC and national champs NC State, finishes behind number 20 ranked Virginia in 5th place. And this marks the first time since 2015 that this meet was not won by the NC State women. That was an 8-year streak that was broken today. But NC State was still present. They were there. Grace Hartman wins it for them on the individual side and continues the streak of 6 years now that a Wolfpack woman has won that title.
And then lastly, I think to cap off, I mean, goodness, we went through so many conference meets. I think the last one we still have to talk about is the Big Ten, right?
Big Ten.
In Illinois. And I think we have to start here actually with the women's race, because the Oregon Ducks had by far their best performance of the entire season here, and it came at a good time at the conference championships. They were going in number 10 into this race, and they upset number 4 Washington convincingly too by 27 points. Salon ILDs, she hasn't raced all season long. She makes her season debut here, and what does she do in her season debut? She wins the individual title. So quite the race there for the Ducks. They also went 1-2. Maddie Elmore for Oregon finished second. So really great performance there from the Ducks. Now on the men's side, it was an even closer race, I would say. While Wisconsin was the one that ended up grabbing the win, you know, if you're looking at how the top three separated, only 12 points separated them. Wisconsin, and then they beat Washington in second, and then Oregon in third. And actually, to determine that Washington and Oregon second and third place, it came down to the number 4 runners, Tyrone Gorsey of Washington and Tayson Echo-Hawk of Oregon. They both ran identical times, but it was Gorsey who got the advantage there on the timing. So it's Washington who grabbed second place there. And then lastly, looking at the individual race, it was Bob Liking of Wisconsin who got the individual title on the men's side. 4 straight years that he's won the Big Ten title. That's pretty impressive.
It's a gamer. That's
gamer. Right. That's right.
And you know, you got to call out, this is the first year with some of those former Pac-12 schools in now the Big Ten Conference, and the Wisconsin men said, hey, you might have taken it on the women's side, but we're not going to let you take it on the men's side. So Oregon and Washington came into the conference this weekend to really let the Big Ten feel that West Coast presence. But again, the Wisconsin men held them off, took that title, kept it in the I guess you'd say the old school Big Ten circle.
That sounds about right.
So they'll have to, the Washington and Oregon will have to wait another year to have a shot at it. But that is the conference rundown. There are obviously more conference meets around the country. Some top teams with some not as deep conferences doing some good things out there. But with that rundown now in the books, it's time to go to our rankings. Our November 4th rankings have been set and released, and we're going to look at 11 through 20 on the list and see what moves have been made. Ashley, we're looking at it here. The men's team rankings are out, and
Yes.
What are you seeing?
I mean, I think first, if you're looking at the biggest movers, you have number 19, Oregon. They went from being ranked all the way in the back. They move up 11 spots here to crack into the top 20 to find their third place finish at the Big Ten Championships. I also think if you're looking for other big callouts, Notre Dame on the men's side, they dropped 6 places. However, they didn't perform, I think, up to expectations at the ACC Championships. So just, you know, due to that, I think they take that drop back. But you see other big movers like Virginia, they performed well at ACC, so they move up to 11. And I think overall, you know, you're seeing the results of conference championships play out.
Yeah. You know, Wisconsin wins. We just talked about them, and they take 5 steps back here, drop out of the top 10. And, you know, some of that might be just, you know, as now these meets have shaken out, conferences have shaken out. The Big Ten, are they as deep as maybe we might have thought earlier in the season? Obviously, we saw Big 12 super deep, and we'll get to that in here just a second when we reveal 1 through 10. So we'll see how things shake out. Wisconsin will see this. I'm sure they'll be ready come regionals. But look at this, top 10 in the books, and a little bit, I mean, some decent moves, but really let's take a drill in on that top 3 spots. The foreshadowing from Coach Ed Eyestone on what he thought could happen in Madison?
I mean, he thought that maybe the top 3 teams in the Big 12 could go top 3 at nationals, and we're seeing that right here in our rankings. BYU, the Big 12 champions, moved to number 1. Oklahoma State drops down to number 2, and then Iowa State, who finished 3rd at Big 12s, moves to number 3. Arkansas, who won the SEC championships, drops down a couple spots to number 4, but still stays in that top 5 there. And then some other big movers are North Carolina moving up to 8. Cracking the top 10 again. They had a strong performance at ACCs. And then if you're looking at Alabama as well, they were the runner-ups at SEC championships, and they cracked the top 10.
Yep. Yeah, some interesting moves. I mean, Arkansas, I think it was our last show. We were really, really impressed with how they ran after the pre-nats, and you spoke with them on site there. But again, that depth in the Big 12 right now, just super, super impressive. So very, as Coach Eyestone said, just hope people are excited. There's a lot of things to watch and get ready for come, you know, late November in Madison, and we will see that here in a few weeks. But with that, we still got women's now, and let's see where this top 20 shakes out. 11 through 20 on the board. Ashley, pitching to you to see where these big movers are this one.
Well, I think if you're looking at this, Minnesota moves up 5 into that top 25 there. Oklahoma State, biggest mover by far, double-digit move, 11 spots up to number 13. I believe they finished in the top 4 there on the women's side of the Big 12 championships. Again, I think similar to the men's side, the women's Big 12 is also very deep, so seeing the movement there. Notre Dame, now they won the ACC championships, however, they do drop back a few places to number 11. You see NC State didn't necessarily have the performance they probably won at ACC, so they moved back a few spots to number 16.
Yeah, Notre Dame is an interesting one. They lead, they're top-ranked ACC school, as you mentioned. But what we noticed there is Emily Covert and Arian Olsen, who've been in the top 5 all year, and in most of these meets, either they're number 2 and sometimes number 3 runners, finished 37th and 45th respectively. They were 6th and 7th on the team. So while they still won the meet, a big core of that number 2 and 3 spot have dropped back a little bit. Covert, just to give a comparison here, Covert finished 15th at pre-nat. She was 8th at Joe Piani and was number 2 on their team. So that's a big, kind of a big loss out of the top 5 right now when you look at it from a national perspective. And Olsen, again, 55th at the pre-nats. That was a really good showing for her then. Definitely room for improve, even though they're coming out of a conference title, some room for improvement there based on where they finished.
That's for sure, but we'll have to see how this then unfolds at regionals and nationals.
Yeah.
For sure.
So top 10, let's see it. Big reveal, 1 through 10 on the board. Not a ton of movement in that 1 and 2 spot, but a big jump into number 3 for Oregon there.
I mentioned that the Oregon Ducks had their best performance of the season at Big Tens, and so you're seeing that movement here. They win the conference, they move up 7 spots into the top 3. I think we really saw this weekend just how strong this program can be when everyone is running and running at their best. So that is the biggest move here in the top 10. Now, as you see some of the other movement, not a whole lot. I mean, you have Alabama, who won SEC championships. They cracked the top 10. And besides that, it's pretty solidified on the women's side for the top 10.
Yeah. It is a very, very strong top 10. Again, Oregon kind of really the big move there. But outside of that, it's pretty well established on where these teams sit. So come regionals, come nationals, we're going to see really how this all shakes out with these teams. So with that being said, these teams are made up of individuals, and it's time to take a look at where we rank our top 10 individuals in the country on the men's side. And here we go.
If you're looking at this list, some big call-outs to have here. Cracking the top 10, Robin Kwemoy-Bear of Iowa State. I know we heard Ed Eyestone talking a lot about how he thinks Iowa State's such a good program, and he was one of their top performers at Big 12. So he moves up 6 spots, actually, to go into 10th there as well. Casey Klinger of BYU moves to number 8 after being outside of the top 10 for a bit. He moved up 4 spots. And then Brian Masai of Oklahoma State won the Big 12 championship. He moves up 3 spots to crack into the top 3. So I think now at this point, as you're looking at this list, I think as we've seen the season go along, we're now seeing it. Finally, I think we're seeing the heavy hitters in this top 10, right? We've seen how all of these men have raced against each other, whether it's pre-nats, Nutty-Comb Conference, and how things have shaken out. And I think really now we're in a solid place going into regionals, looking at, okay, who are the top men in this country right now? So I think if you're looking at this is where we're really seeing some of the best athletes finally, cracking into there.
Parker Wolf finished 3rd at that ACC championship. He's still, I was wondering how that will affect his impact. We bring up Parker because beginning of the season, everyone said, oh man, why is he so far back? He moves way up. Now he is, I'd say, a little bit of a surprise 3rd place, where he's the defending champ last year in that ACC conference and finished 3rd, but still ranked in that top 5, and we expect him to be ready to go come national time. But on the women's side, it's time to see who's vying for that individual title.
Now, we actually see some huge movers here into the top 10. The biggest one has to be Sadie Sigstead, who, if you remember, she won the Nutty-Comb individual title earlier this year. She had dropped back some in the rankings, but now she moves up 16 spots behind a solid top 5 finish at the Big East Championships. You also have Kaylee McCabe of West Virginia, moves to number 9, moving up 6 spots after she won the Big 12 individual title. And then Chloe Thomas of Connecticut has looked really strong all season. And then to kind of put the cherry on top, she wins the individual title at the Big East Championships there, moves up 7 spots. But then besides that, once you get into the top 5, really not much movement. You still have Doris Lemon-Gole of Alabama at number 1, Pamela Koskai of New Mexico at number 2, Hilda Olamomoy, who's the runner-up at SECs, in 3rd. So I think if you're looking at this, again, the top 5 has been solidified, I think, in not a whole lot of movement over the past few weeks, but where you're seeing the movement is 5 through 10.
Yeah, even also in here, Alex Millard from Providence, not as big of a move as these others in the 7 through 10 spot, but still moves into the top 10. She had sat 11th previously and is now number 8 there for Providence, so hits that top 10. So that group of 10 women there, there's obviously a deeper field behind them, but that group of 10 is really, really strong. And it's tough to say what I'm more excited about at this point in the season, the team battle versus the individual battle. As I say that, I want to take it back. The team thing is always crazy for me. I love the team battle. But the individual battle is the first thing that happens, right? It's like the first people that cross the line and kind of gets that excitement going as you're waiting and anticipating how the team battle is shaking up. But really, as we go through the season, it's progressing and kind of coming into a super compelling story on all those sides.
I mean, I think we're filing out the point of the season where it's like, all right, conference is done. It's the postseason. Like, I think that's what has me excited is now we've finally seen these teams actually compete at full strength, right? Like, some of these teams, they wait a while to open up their top athletes. But I think now we've really seen all those top athletes compete, and these teams have shown their cards a little bit, and now we're going to see how it plays out at regionals and nationals.
Yep. Conference is done. Our show's now about done, but the season is not done. We've got about 3 weeks left, and coming up next will be the regional championship. Ashley, anything people should look out for in the coming weeks as we get ready for that?
For sure. Well, obviously we'll have regionals. I know going into regionals, we're going to make some of our staff picks, to see who we think is going to grab the auto burst, the at-large burst, and then also on the afternoon of November 15th, after we go through after all the regional results are in, we're planning on doing a Colas show where we run Colas and tell you who we think projected we have making the NCAA championship field, which will then be released later on in the weekend by the NCAA. So that's some exciting stuff to come. And then we'll also have another HOKA cross-country rankings show following regionals leading into nationals. So, I mean, there's just so much to look forward to, I think, going into the next couple weeks.
Yeah, and then obviously a few weeks away, but then we'll be on site in Madison. I'm super excited for that.
That's right.
So a lot going on, a lot coming up, but that closes it out for today's show. So thank you again for watching this episode of the FloTrack College Cross Country Rankings Show presented by HOKA. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time on Monday, November 18th. So until then, stick along for all of the action, all the analysis, and as Ashley said, staff picks as we get ready for the season closeout. But until then, enjoy. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.